All right, the Senate Finance Committee is back in session for voting list number 5. All right, and we're starting with, you starting, David?
Yes, I'm starting.
Okay.
Okay, the first bill on your list is Senate Bill 62. You're actually second on this bill. It came out of EHE with nobody voting against. It's a scope of practice bill, and it allows pharmacists, it expands their scope of practice by allowing pharmacists, licensed pharmacists, who meet the requirements specified in the bill to include prescribing and dispensing nicotine replacement therapy medications approved by the FDA. The bill has no amendments. It authorizes, if you're approved to, if you meet certain requirements, you can go to a pharmacist and get nicotine replacement products that are behind the counter and need a prescription. And this would include, from what I looked up, Nicotrol and things like that, which is delivered by a nasal spray or inhaler. I think that's the only one I could find online that would be available by prescription. That is specifically called a nicotine replacement therapy. And they voted it unfavorable. I think it's here because they voted it favorable. Nobody voted against it, and I think it's here because what the actual product is, not the scope of practice issue.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Senator Hershey, I see your light.
Quick question. I saw that MDH and MedChi were unfavorable with it. Has that changed, or is that still?
It probably hasn't changed. I would imagine, we don't deal with scope of practice issues, but I've always understood that maybe they have problems with any type of, giving prescribing authority to other people. But obviously, the EHE did not think, they passed the bill regardless of MedChi's objections.
All right, so did we get a motion?
We did, in a second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I hear no other questions, so let's, all in favor, let's show our hands, if that works. All in favor?
Do I want to be in favor?
We're voting, colleagues. All in favor, please raise your hand. All right. Okay.
Okay, the next bill on your list was.
All right, then I'll just announce that it was unanimous. Okay. All right, let's go on.
Okay, the next bill on your list was held from last week. It was. This was Senator Jackson's bill about requiring innkeepers and lodging establishments to hold on to records for at least 6 months. It also requires the development of a training form by the Office of Crime Prevention, Youth and Victim Services in MDL, and then it would require training that the people who work at inns and lodging establishments train their employees. The senator offered an amendment that would extend the time to train from 45 to 90 days in each instance, and this was at the request of a lodging establishment. The amendment also changed who they would report to law enforcement and the National Human Trafficking Resource Center. The question came up of who does this apply to? And a close reading of the law, there's not that much law regarding inns and lodging establishments. But if you have 4 bedrooms or more, if you have 4 rooms for rent or more, this is going to apply to you. So it's possible that this could apply to a B&B. The other question came up about online rentals. That's a different model. And some of you were here 5 years ago when they tried to bring them in here and define them as innkeepers, and that didn't go well. So I don't believe it would apply to an online platform rental, because they're not defined as an inn or an innkeeper under this law. So.
Yes, Senator Augustine?
Why was 4 chosen then?
Why was four?
Existing law, this goes way back. I'd have to do some research
Because
to
they
find
probably
out.
wasn't thinking about our current situation with the Airbnbs and stuff like that, and that it would apply.
That was, this law predates that type of, and again, I don't know if you were on the committee at that point when the hotel came in and they tried to regulate Airbnb, like hotels. So they moved them in here. It was, anyway, as I said, that didn't go well. So the current law says if you have 4 or more rooms for rent, online platforms tend to be somebody's residence or you rent the entire house, not specific rooms like in this instance. So it could catch some B&Bs. My understanding is that, from human trafficking, what you're trying to address is the large hotels where people can come and go freely, and it's hard to track who's coming and going from the large hotels. If you have a inn with only 4 bedrooms, you're probably going to have a better handle on what's going on in the smaller establishments.
All right, Senator Reedy, and then Senator Hayes.
So I have 2 issues. First, I want to go back to the 4 rooms, and I understand it's existing law, so I get why it's there. I've got some discomfort that we're going to catch some people do it. I mean, I guess they just have to train their employees, but it's just a little weird. But if we don't want to start picking amounts of rooms out of a hat and say, well, if you have less than 8 rooms, I guess. I'm a little weird about that. The other thing I have a question about is, I still get hung up on this. Down on line 28 of page 2 of the reprint, line 27 and 28, they want you to talk about, the training program has to talk about the differences between labor and sex trafficking that are specific to the whole hotel industry. To me, that looks like it implies that there's a difference. It's all illegal activity. So I guess, can somebody give me some comfort that I'm not voting to say those 2 things are at all, either one of them is okay? I don't know.
Some things are, it's just my take on it, are happening within environments that are hard to track or to do anything about. So we know that nothing is going to be 100% with all entities of all types. And so I think the idea here is to start with what is trackable and what is doable, rather than to start with a lot of stuff that you'll never be able to handle.
Well, I mean, there are some places there are probably some places where there's a lot of this happening, and there's places where a lot of this is not happening. It just seems strange to me to be saying the differences between labor and sex trafficking. I suppose we're talking about specific traffic. I mean, those 2 things can be somewhat indistinguishable at times. I mean, but I don't know how I feel. Obviously, I support the intent of the bill. I just am a little confused by that. I don't have a solution. I don't even know that an amendment would make sense, but,
Senator Hayes?
David, are Airbnbs defined in the code?
Not in this part of the code, no. Not as a inn or a lodging establishment.
Right, but are they defined anywhere where we could possibly put in an amendment to make sure that they're not?
I don't know if you want to, okay. They're not defined here. This doesn't apply to them. I don't know if there's some reference in the tax general article because of the sales tax. The issue with the Airbnbs was this, them paying, initially from the state perspective, was them paying their taxes. We're getting way off human trafficking here. But the issue there was getting Airbnbs to pay taxes. Mm-hmm. So you had the issue 5 years ago or so when that was about, one, getting them to pay taxes, and also to, I mean, quite frankly, there was, the bill as introduced would have put them in here, and it would have put various requirements on them, like sprinklers and all this other stuff, which was designed to reduce the number of online rentals available. That was what the point of that bill was.
No, I got it, but if there's a definition that defines what an Airbnb is, and we're not sure, if there's uncertainty here on whether or not they're identified?
I don't think, if this at all could have applied to them, I think they would have been here, believe me. So I don't think this applies to Airbnbs. I mean, yeah, if you wanted to get, you could ask an attorney, but it's such a narrowly drawn part of the code. There's only about 2 or 3 pages to it. And it's largely, there's already a requirement in the law that was passed a couple years ago requiring a notice be placed at each establishment. So that's in the law now, that each lodging and inn establishment has these notices. I bet if you go to an Airbnb, you're not gonna find that in there, so, you know, they're not complying with that, so.
Gotcha.
All right, Senator Hershey, followed by Senator Jennings.
Yeah, I was just gonna add to what David was saying. I think at least 4 rooms available would probably mean separate rooms that would be under separate fee, to do that. It also talks, I think, enough times about employees within this, and generally Airbnbs don't have employees. So, I'd feel comfortable that it's not trying to encompass Airbnbs or anything on the,
Senator Jennings?
I was just gonna say, what about adding uncodified language? That it's the intent of the General Assembly that this does not apply to these types of facilities. That way, should this, in a couple of years, somebody get caught up in this, they can say, hey, this wasn't focused for the, you know, the beach house that somebody rented in Ocean City that had 5 bedrooms. It was for the condo complex that had.
But
So,
Okay. Senator Feldman?
Well, I think for those of us who were here 5 years, okay, that sounds nice. But that, it was like out the hallway, every Airbnb in the state of Maryland came in. Okay, are you going to draft the amendment defining like exactly who we're capturing? Because it's not simple at all. So when you say facilities or intent is not to cover, we don't have a definition because we had big battle between Marriott trying to kill this industry, and people from the Eastern Shore drove 4 hours to sort of say that it doesn't come. So I'm just suggesting you may be opening up even something as simple as some uncodified language in the context of a pretty narrow bill. You got to weigh exactly. I'll just throw that into the mix, having been here 5 years ago.
Okay, Senator Reedy?
One other question, then I have something I want to propose. Bed and breakfast, do they fall under the innkeepers? I don't remember what you said.
if you have more than 4 bedrooms, I would say, as a bed and breakfast, you would probably fall under this requirement.
All right. I'd like to, unrelated to that, for some reason, this is really bothering me. I wanted to propose an amendment idea just on that section I referenced earlier. The differences between labor and sex trafficking. I would just want to strike the difference between labor and instead say the issues involving sex trafficking that are specific to the hotel industry. Because this is pretty wide. This is basically giving guidance for what needs to be in a training program. I don't know. It sticks out like a sore thumb to me. I'm not sure why, but.
Senator Klossmeyer and then Senator Bottle.
No, I just to answer that, I'm thinking labor, maybe it's the difference of men and women. You know, the men, they might get them for their labor, and the women are used for sex.
Okay, okay.
I think
Okay.
there's been, there has been instances where people are brought in.
Well,
for
that's
foreign-
right.
And they're forced to, keep house and basically kept imprisoned in
Okay.
their homes.
So I was
Yeah.
reading, I tell you what, you've said that, it's all on the record, so that's what we think that is. All right, that's fine. All right.
Okay, Senator Bottle?
I'll withdraw my idea for a minute.
Okay.
Thank
Senator
you, Madam Chair. I stay in a lot of bed and breakfasts. That's how my husband and I choose to travel. I have a hard time thinking that somebody doing a criminal act, like sex trafficking or labor trafficking, would choose a bed and breakfast to bring people in. I mean, they're usually very small. You've got a shared foyer or shared living room. I just don't see it happening. And I think, as David said earlier, you typically don't have employees. It's the owner that's managed. Sometimes there's a house manager, but typically it's the owner. I don't really see a problem with the bill the way it is.
Okay, so where are we?
I think what do we move in favor?
Do we have a motion? All right, Senator,
With amendment or David? Is it with
All right, Senator Klossmeyer recognized, yes.
I second.
But wait, I'm not sure what she said.
I first.
What?
What am I supposed to, I make a motion to pass the bill.
Okay,
I'm second.
okay. All right, now Senator Hershey.
Thank you, just another question, is none of this being done at all by any hotel establishments? This is all brand new?
There was testimony last year on this bill, if I recall, that the hotels have a program.
That's what I thought.
And the sponsor worked with the hotels, and, because they offered these amendments about delaying the training time. But I think a lot of these training manuals or these training programs are already in place. And they're working with the sponsor to give them, for new employees to get trained so they can, get more comfortable with the surroundings. That was the testimony from the
Right.
industry.
So that was my question. So kind of why is this needed? If the hotels are basically the establishments that this is probably going to happen, why?
It's still happening unabated with nothing, no follow-up.
Well,
But I'm not going to.
you're asking a lot of new businesses to, regardless of some of the training programs of keeping and establishing a computerized record-keeping system.
Well, they should.
Well, I wouldn't say that every bed and breakfast out there has to
Well,
have
we
a
didn't say
computerized.
bed, I thought bed and breakfast
No,
was
we
running.
decided that a bed and breakfast, if it had 4 rooms in it, that would fall under this.
Has any employee?
Yeah, so,
I
Change the
thought-
terminology to.
I thought we said that they don't tend to have the,
well, I think that conversation was more on the Airbnb
okay,
and rather than the bed and breakfast industry, which is different.
all right. Let me move to Senator Bottom.
Is there a way to change the terminology to hotel and motel? Or is that not legally sufficient? It says, because as Senator Augustine said, they'd still have to be keeping the records. If it was a 4-bedroom, they'd still have to be keeping the records.
I guess you could specify in this particular section, and increase the number of rooms to get it the larger hotel, get it more of a hotel or a lodging establishment. One possibility would be to just, in this section, lodging establishment there is a way to do it if you want to just increase the number of beds for this particular specific requirement.
Can we hold the bill?
We already have a motion.
If you withdraw your motion.
If you want to hold it, well, I'll
Withdraw.
Okay,
Withdraw it.
all right, so the maker of the motion has withdrawn the motion, so we'll hold it so it could get more work, okay.
Okay. All right, next bill is Senate Bill 144. This is I won't even try to say Amy Dowland. I don't know how to say that word. Basically, there's a part of the code that would authorize a physician to write a prescription for Latril, which is what is more common known. The FDA has since banned the use of this substance and importation of this substance into the United States. So the bill just repeals the authorization for a physician to prescribe Latril.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll move favorable, but I'd also add that 30 other states have already banned this very dangerous substance. Somehow we still have something on the books from 35 years ago.
I second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. All in 30 states have already done it. So all in favor, please raise your hand. All right, that's unanimous. Okay.
The last bill I have is Senate Bill 263, and there's some amendments. Senate Bill 263 concerns children's meals served by food service facilities. If a food service facility offers a children's meal, which includes a beverage as part of the meal package, the meal's beverage must be either water, plain milk, or 100% fruit or vegetable juice. A customer, nothing in this bill would prohibit a customer and a food service facility from providing a different kind of beverage if the customer orders that. So that right of the customer is preserved. The sponsor, Senator Beidle, has some amendments to the bill. The amendments begin on page 2. And first, water, they can provide water unflavored or unsweetened, or sparkling water with no natural or artificial sweetener. So it adds sparkling water to the mix of a beverage that can be included with a meal. If you go to line 13, it increases the serving size to 8 ounces, not 6 ounces, to conform, I guess, as presented in testimony, the average glass size at a food service facility. And Mako testified that the local government should still have the ability to pass their own laws. So the Senator Beidle has offered a language that says, nothing in this section shall be construed to preempt a county or municipal government from enacting and enforcing more stringent measures. Limiting default beverages included in the children's meals offered by a food service facility. This language is based on the same language that gives local authority in the smoking ban.
Okay, do we have a motion? Senator Jennings.
Can we add chocolate milk? I mean, in all
Well-
seriousness, kids, they're not gonna, I can't get my kids to drink white milk. But chocolate milk, you got me with chocolate milk.
But this was with no added flavors, and that's really, I don't know.
Big brother.
Request chocolate milk, it's not that a parent can't request it, it's what is offered on the menu. Nothing stops a parent from asking for chocolate milk or soda. That's not what the point. The point is what's listed on the kids' meal menu, that's all.
Not on the menu, parents aren't gonna know that they have it, and therefore the restaurants are gonna stop carrying it. Why not just add it to the menu? I mean, it's milk. We want them to drink milk to get their calcium. Chocolate milk's an option. They have it if we're gonna do this, then we should go into the schools and take chocolate milk out of the cafeterias.
It's a good idea.
Why are we against chocolate milk?
I'm
It's not
not.
healthy.
Don't they have non-sweet chocolate milk?
Senator Hershey?
Yeah, I mean, I had a list of amendments as well, and to go on Senator Jacobs' point, it does say flavored, Senator Jennings, flavored or unflavored, non-fat or low-fat dairy milk or non-fat dairy beverage that is nutritionally equivalent to fluid milk in a serving size of 8 ounces or less. So if it's still flavored or unflavored, no fat, non-fat or low-fat, why wouldn't that be any different than what your legislation is?
I'm sorry, read it again, I haven't seen it. Is this it? Is this? No, I haven't seen your amendment, so,
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you had these.
no.
Okay, my apologies for not, I thought those were out. It says the same thing. It just expanded what you had to non-fat or low-fat, dairy or non-dairy. And then it also talked about vegetable juices.
Is that a question or is that a recommendation?
It was a recommendation, but I thought, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I thought this was handed out, but it was not. So,
Okay.
I didn't.
yeah, okay.
All right, so where are we on this?
You have a motion? I'll make a motion.
Yes.
So I think these amendments, for the sponsor amendments, I don't really like the nothing in this section shall be construed to preempt, just because I can't imagine going more stringent than this, but I understand that's part of the sponsor amendment. I actually want to applaud going from 6 to 8 ounces, because one idea that occurred to me in the hearing is that the restaurant people actually would love this because they get to sell, only a 6-ounce bottle of something, which is really a ripoff in a kid's meal, considering the price you pay for kids' meals these days. I was trying to figure out if there's a way to deal with this bill. I mean, I know how it's going to go in this committee. I just really object to, the government cannot be everybody's nutritionist and tell everybody what to do constantly and put it in. I don't think it's right to put these kind of things in state law. I know people are going to disagree with me. This is like going too far. I am glad to know it's only packaged though. So it's packaged Happy Meals. So we're not saying that if a server at a restaurant serves a kid chicken fingers and then asks them what they'd like to drink, that the server's not going to get in trouble for, right, this is about packaged meals. So if I'm buying a Chick-fil-A meal or a Happy Meal for a kid,
Okay.
this is what we're talking about?
Yeah, Senator Bottom?
Some restaurants, now, I'm not saying McDonald's or Chick-fil-A, will have a segment of kids' meals, children's meals, and it'll say served with beverages, and it'll list the beverages. In that case, they'd have to list these beverages, not chocolate milk and not Coke. It would say with the Happy Meal, they'd have under it, fruit juice, vegetable
Milk.
juice, milk, whatever. Not that the parent can't order it separately.
I understand that.
But the
I
menu
understand that.
would give you this list.
My comments are not directed at the idea that it's definitely wise for children to not drink a lot of sugary drinks and soda. I just object to the putting that much specificity into our state law. I just don't think that's the role of government, which, we may disagree, and that's fine. A lot of these restaurants will list, usually they say, they can have milk, they can have juice, they can have, soda. You're saying that this will govern even making sure that it has to appear first on the little paper menu we get when we sit down. It's going to have to say that first, like milk or juice? That's what this law will do?
Yes.
We're just engaging our businesses so that if they're serving kids and they're specializing in a kid's meal, what they offer are a number of fairly healthy ideas for that kid's
Well,
meal.
they
It doesn't
already
stop
do-
them from selling otherwise.
To be clear, they already do offer it. It's just we're saying they have to say that this is what you should have.
If you're gonna advertise it as a kid's meal.
All right.
There are parents who are not that well educated or who are not thinking about it, but their kids end up with diabetes or with problems early. It just is helpful for a lot of people who've got a lot on their minds, and this isn't one of the top things they're thinking about.
I'm just not sure we can do everybody's thinking for them, but I understand. I'm outnumbered on this, but I don't particularly care for it.
Senator Feldman.
This may be a surprise, but, so I literally, I was on the fence on this one candidly, some of the reasons that Senator Reedy articulated, but this is maybe more for Senator Kramer's benefit. So just today, our county, Montgomery County Subcommittee voted unanimously to pass basically the exact same bill. So for purpose of explaining my vote, since my county got this in the books, I know Baltimore City's already acted. I think there is also an idea of some uniformity in the state now that Baltimore City and Montgomery is about to act probably within the next day or so, full committee. So I'm going to be voting yes in part for that reason. Just want to explain that.
Okay. Senator Hershey.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think the reality is that this ends up becoming worse, actually, because nobody's going to list all this stuff on the menu. They're certainly going to, they're just going to say a kid's meal with a drink, and the waiter's going to look to the parent and says, what do you want to drink? And the kid's going to say Coke, and they're going to say Coke. They're not going to list all these and start explaining each one of these to their 5-year-old and say, what do you want? So that's not where this is going to happen. If you look at a Happy Meal, this packaged meals, this is what McDonald's already says. Juicy hamburger with kid-sized world-famous French fries and apple slices, then pick a kid's drink, 1% low-fat milk, reduced sugar chocolate milk, Dasani water, Honest Kids, Appley, Ever After, organic juice drink. That's what McDonald's is already
They're
doing.
doing the same thing, they just didn't express it similarly.
So my point is, I don't understand who this bill is targeted to. If these big businesses are already doing it, and you're talking now about restaurants, Restaurants are not gonna do all this. They're just simply not
They
going to
may
add
not offer a children's meal, or.
they'll offer a children's meal without a drink, and they'll say, what do you want, what does your kid want to
They
drink?
very well might, and they've got the flexibility to do that.
It's just,
All right, are we ready to vote? Is there a motion? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please raise your hand.
I think you need a roll call on this one.
All right,
I think.
all right, let's call the roll.
It's with amendments, right?
Yeah.
Senate Bill 263, favorable with amendments. Senator Feldman.
Aye.
Aye. Senator Klausmeyer.
Pass.
Pass. Senator Benson. Pass. Pass. Senator Kramer.
Yes.
Yes. Senator Hayes.
Yes.
Yes. Senator Reedy. No. No. Senator Augustine.
Yes.
Yes. Senator Beidle. Yes. Yes. Senator Hershey. No. No. Senator Jennings.
No.
No. Senator Klausmeyer.
Yes.
Yes. Senator Benson.
Yes.
Yes. Madam Chair.
Yes.
Okay, bill passes. Party line.
What do we,
Passes, it was party line vote.
all right, well, just the number, that's all I want to say. Where we are.
7-3.
All right, it passed 7-3. Okay. All right, what do we got next? Okay, all right,
The next bill,
we want to be mindful, everybody would like to go home tonight, including the analysts, so we want to listen to Nathan. Okay.
the next bill is Senate Bill 28, which requires the Medicaid home and community-based services waiver to include a cap on participation and a plan for waiver for participation of at least 7,500 individuals. The Department of Health must send a waiver application to at least 600 individuals on the waiting list each month. And a waiver application must state clearly and conspicuously that the applicant must submit the application within 6 weeks of receipt and must meet all eligibility criteria for waiver participation within 6 months of submitting the application. There are amendments to the bill offered by the chair. It adds a sponsor, Senator Benson, and further requires the Department of Health by October 31st of this year to apply to CMS for an amendment to the home and community-based services waiver to increase the waiver cap size as necessary to implement the bill.
Okay. And guys, you might just remember that here we are dealing with the situation that okay, all right, okay. Okay.
I would like to be amended to the bill.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, all right, then let's call the roll.
I'm kidding about her.
Oh, okay.
No, I want to be amended because I might need it in a few.
It's just to
So it's unanimous.
All right, all in favor, raise your hand. Let's try to get it done. Okay, all right.
Second shot at it.
Okay, Senator Hershey, did you vote one way or the other? Okay, so it is 9-2.
8-3.
8-3, okay. Okay.
The next bill is Senate Bill 243, which requires the Secretary of Health to be professionally qualified through experience or education in at least one of the following areas: health law or policy, healthcare facilities administration, health economics or financial management, government operations related to healthcare, or as a healthcare provider. There is an amendment that's reflected in a reprint before you that is offered by Senator Lamb. That amendment would require each deputy secretary in the Department of Health to have at least 5 years of management experience in the field the deputy will oversee, and further requires the Deputy Secretary for Public Health Services to be a healthcare practitioner licensed under the Health Occupations article. This amendment is a revised version of the language that Senator Feldman presented at the bill hearing. It's very narrow now that it only requires 5 years of experience for the deputy secretaries and that one of the deputy secretaries be licensed.
Can I just add just a little meat? Okay, so the original bill just dealt with the Secretary of Health, and the argument there was, just like 20-some other states, we're putting some bare minimum requirements, in place. Now, Senator Lamb did talk about the idea and approached me and gave us some language that the real work is amongst the deputies. It's not, the secretary can be the political appointee, might have management experience. We're not requiring that he be an MD like 6 other states do. Unlike our local health officers who all have to be MDs in our state, which I didn't know. So anyway, these deputies, we're not changing anything in the organizational structure currently. That's why it needs a little rewrite. We're laying out the current structure, and we're simply saying that you should have 5 years experience in the area that your deputy status is responsible for, with the exception of the one deputy who specifically is our Deputy Secretary for Public Health, where all the clinical work is done and all that. In that case, you have to be, quote, licensed under the Health Occupations article. So that could be MD, nurse. So that's a special category. But it's not changing, and it does have no impact on our current secretary. This is prospective, post-July 1. But this puts us in accord with most states that if the governor's going to make an appointment and there's going to be deputies, you got to have some people with some basic background in the relevant field. That's, in a nutshell, what this bill does. So.
Okay, I see 2 lights, Senator Hershey and then Senator Reedy.
Yeah, I guess back to my original question, who decides if these conditions have been met?
It's not specified in the bill.
And if I might just respond, and I think I said this at the time, obviously these are subject to confirmation by the Senate. I think this is broadly, and I think the way it's worked in other states, it's telling our governor that when you hire, here are some guidelines that we are saying the governor needs to take into account before he sends it our way. Now, subsequently, be subject to interpretation. You don't want to get it too narrow. So these are broad categories. I think they're broad, and you say subject to interpretation. I mean, just think how it could play out. If it came to the executive noms for the Secretary of Health, we could say that you don't meet the criteria we put in statute. And subsequently, I guess somebody could argue later after an appointment that the guy doesn't meet the qualifications. I mean, that would be ultimately, I don't want to get down too down the field, but these are providing some guidelines for a governor, is how I view this bill, as he's contemplating who to name as Secretary of Health of our state.
Okay, so it's more for guidelines.
But it's in statute, so this would be subject to interpretation, ultimately maybe by a court.
But at the end of the day, these individuals are approved by the Senate. So if the Senate didn't like the individual's qualifications, they could just reject the nominee, right?
Well,
That's my next question.
Yeah, so the deputies are not,
So the deputy secretaries are appointed with the approval of the governor. So the secretary shall appoint the 5 deputies. With
correct.
the
So
approval of the
that, so one of the reasons extending it down to the deputies, what we're trying to guard against is a bunch of political hacks getting appointed that have no relevant background. So yes, so the deputies are not subject to Senate confirmation. So we are providing, saying 5 years of relevant experience. Again, I would say some guidance to our Secretary of Health and then whoever the next governor is, that as you appoint deputies, they should have some relevant experience as opposed to people that This is an area where $18 billion, 1/3 of our state budget, is controlled by our Secretary of Health.
I understand all that.
And so this is not like something we just throw people in that have nothing.
I'm not saying that some of it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
It sounds a lot better when you say these are guidelines. I just don't necessarily understand how this is actually implemented or how it couldn't be implemented already if these individuals, except for the deputy secretaries, are under the advice and consent of the Senate. They could always reject that nominee to begin
Just
with.
one final, we'll turn it to Rita. Number one, we have very specific rules for our local departments of health. Must have an MD. I'm trying to not go that route, trying to be more generic, and we're not saying that with the exception of the one. And I would also say that 20 other states very much have these provisions or even more stringent. So this is actually, I would say, bare minimum. We could be a lot more stringent, but we're not doing that with this bill.
All right, Senator Reedy?
A couple things. One is, I'm not sure that's true about local health officers,
Okay,
that you have
Oh,
to be
yes,
an
they are.
MD.
Not certain.
okay, let's.
Our health officer for several years in Carroll County up until recently was not an MD as far as I know. Now, he was a very accomplished person, but he wasn't an MD.
Okay, we'll get you the Comar site. So in
Just to be
Comar,
clear,
it
I think
specifically
they are
says all our
required
local
to be.
officers have to be an MD under Comar, but I can get you the site.
Okay. I'll check. I'm
That's
just
how
curious.
this all came
I'd love to
about.
know that, because maybe I'm missing something
No,
about the guy.
I just
that
want
was-
to say, that's how it all came about.
I'm not
was-
suggesting you're not trying to tell the
Right.
truth.
I
that's
understand.
news to me, yeah.
I understand.
The other larger point, that was one point. Larger point is, I'm uncomfortable with putting this level of specificity on deputy secretaries. Do we do this, I mean, look, I could have, in the last year of the previous governor, I could have put in a great bill to say that anybody who's gonna run a healthcare exchange has to have certain types of experience after the training
Well,
like that was.
If I could just press back on you, when you say specificity, 5 years of general relevant experience in the area that you are responsible for, that's not exactly too prescriptive. I mean, I don't know how much.
Well, we've never
how-
done that in state law for
Well,
anything
we
before.
should.
Experience in the field the deputy secretary will oversee as deputy secretary. You think that's too prescriptive? That's pretty darn broad.
What's the problem we're trying to solve? Are there deputy secretaries now that have no clue what
Well, we
field
just
they're
went
in?
through COVID, Senator Reedy, and around the country, I would suggest to you that, yes, we had folks running the COVID operations in numerous states that had no relevant experience to be doing any of it. So this is in part a response to the national situation of the past 2 years.
But I understand that. I don't know the specifics you're talking about. I'm sure there were places where there were unqualified people in positions or certainly had no experience with infectious diseases. But I haven't heard that we're state legislators. This is the state. So I'm not sure what's the problem we're solving here.
Okay, I don't have much more to say. I think we need qualified people in such an important set of positions.
I agree with you in principle, but I don't like the idea of putting a state law together for
yeah.
that kind of
that's
specificity
fair.
on appointments.
I hear you.
Okay. Senators Hayes and Kramer.
No, Mr. Vice Chair, you had mentioned as a part of your explanation, I agree with you. I think we should have some minimum qualifications for secretary and deputy secretaries. In most agencies, deputy secretaries are the ones who we rely on the expertise and to carry out the stuff. But you had mentioned the confirmation process. You were referring to the secretary, not the
Yeah,
deputy
correct. So
secretaries in that case.
we're just
Okay,
talking about, so the Secretary of Health comes through executive noms. The deputies don't, so that you could stick anybody in there without anything.
Senator Kramer.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I am going to vote for the bill, but I just want to a cautionary note about that slippery slope and where we start going with this kind
Yeah,
of.
I know the other bill you're
but-
thinking of, by the way. There is another
Hello.
bill, yeah.
But I will be voting for this bill.
Okay. All right, then let's call for the question. All in favor? All in favor, please raise your hand. Let's see if that'll work. All right. Well, it does not. All right. In that case, then, let's just call the roll.
It's 8-3. It's party line, 8-3.
Okay, all right, well, we could do it that way. All right, so the three that didn't raise their hands are against, yeah.
Schrader would qualify.
Okay. Let me just go back for a minute and say one thing that did occur to me after we voted on 28. And I didn't want, just in case, the three who did vote against it to get upset on the floor, because maybe you are not remembering something. That what this bill does is to allow those disabled and elderly people who need health care and who prefer to get it at home, not to have to go into an institution. And that's what this does. And budget and tax has the money, we got the money to keep people who prefer to be cared for at home.
Madam Chair, I think our objection was thought there was an explanation and it just kind of got moved. I don't like to vote for stuff I don't completely understand.
I like that explanation better. I'll vote with you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. But that means that's really what it
I
does.
was trying to read the amendments and read the bill and it moved it, and I'm not gonna vote for something I don't.
Okay, we'll add Hershey to, thank you. Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, all right, let's go on to 464.
Senate Bill 464 is an emergency bill that authorizes the Maryland Underground Facilities Damage Prevention Authority to impose additional punitive measures when a person fails to notify the on-call system before performing excavation or demolition, or violates any other requirement related to excavation and demolition. Specifically, instead of or in addition to assessing a civil penalty pursuant to current law, the authority may require a person to participate in damage prevention training or implement procedures to mitigate the likelihood of damage to underground facilities or impose other similar measures.
Okay,
Move favorable.
I'd like to be a co-sponsor.
all right, Senator Klossmeyer wants to be added as a sponsor. Anybody else? Okay, then all in favor, raise your hand. That's the word. Are you with us, JB? Okay, all right, then is that unanimous? Okay, thank you. All right, and finally, Senate Bill 167.
So Senate Bill 167 is a Maryland Insurance Administration departmental bill, and this was heard fairly early on in session. It relates to the enforcement authority of the MIA. There were some concerns that some of the property and casualty insurers had raised when the bill was introduced about some of the language, and they've since met and they've come up with some amendments that clarify some of the language that's in the bill, which I can describe to you. I don't think I need a reprint for that. But just to summarize, the bill clarifies the enforcement authority of the MIA when an insurance company, a not-for-profit health insurance plan, or an HMO has violated state law by failing to pay a claim or otherwise fulfill its contractual obligations. What the bill specifies is that the remedies available to the MIA include the authority to require the company to pay the claim or fulfill its contractual obligation to the insured. It also authorizes the commissioner, on a finding of a violation of the Unfair Claim Settlement Practices statute, to require the carrier to provide a payment that has been denied improperly. And it's this last provision where there's a clarification. So that provision has the amendments that have been agreed to would clarify it so that where there is a finding of an unfair claim settlement practice, the commissioner may require a carrier to provide to a claimant a payment that has been determined to have been denied in violation of the statute. It's just a minor adjustment to the language. And then some uncodified language has been added to the bill that specifies an intent that the bill be construed to be clarifying only and not to grant the commissioner any additional authority beyond what is provided under current law. And so with that, I think all the parties are in agreement.
Okay. All right, we've got a motion. Is there a second? All right, it's been moved and seconded favorably. All in favor, please raise your hand. All right, that looks unanimous. Thank you very much, and I think that ends our session.